All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our September 2015 NHSN CDA vendor meeting. Thanks all for joining. Today I'll be presenting along with my colleagues Mindy Durrance and Tammy Carnes, and my name is Amy Webb. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Mindy.
Hi, welcome, and thank you for joining. We'll go to the next slide. First thing we'll cover is some general updates. Just wanted to bring this up as a reminder. We're seeing a few issues come in our CDA mailbox due to the use of the ampersand in the XML file. It's often, we think it's related to the location mapping. For example, labor and delivery may be L&D. So it's just a reminder for you developers to write your code to handle special characters in the XML. And there's another example of what how L&D would be coded as the code there. The next one is I recently looked at the Apex site, which hosts all the self-identified CDA software vendors. I did notice some of the email contacts are not up to date, so please check that site for your contact for your company and send an email to Tom Weaver at apec.org if it needs to be corrected. We do share that link to new users who are looking for CDA information, so it's very important that you have updated information. This one we have on every slide, but every webinar we give, but we continue to see this same issue. It's a simple, easy to resolve issue. It's user rights to import CDAs. I think it's often when you have a new user or new customers, they tend to give users only AUR rights, which is the antimicrobial use and resistant, and that's actually all they can import. So if you want to import other CDAs besides those, like your BSI, your CLIP, and so on, make sure your users have administrator and all rights. Just want to make sure the application has a little different view. Make sure your users know that the difference between the CSV or CDA import, and the screen there shows the first three are for CSV, and the next two, which have the little red link, have CDA import. We often get the error message, unable to read upload file, and it'll have the actual file name in your, for your zip file, and unable to parse upload the file data. So what they're doing is they're sending in a CDA file and hitting the CSV link, and that's the common error that is received. I'll give you an update on direct CDA automation. We have 2 vendors and 74 facilities sending via direct. More vendors are beginning to test. We see the emails coming in and the questions and who's signing up with Nitor. Just review the lessons learned. Make sure the facility administrator is active. Make sure the facility OID is entered in the user interface prior to enrolling in direct CDA automation. To begin, use your test facility to enroll in direct CDA automation using your unique direct address. Perform the required steps, which are in the ping and pong, until that status equals active. When you enroll other facilities using the same direct address, a validation occurs to verify the address, and the status will change to active after the screen is refreshed. So you want to make sure you get it going on your test facility and work out all the kinks. Another big item we have is make sure you have created some management type solution for these for your direct process. Oh, went back too far. So just to update you on a pre-production vendor test site, it is a copy of the NHSN development environment. We actually are not that far ahead of you in our development. We generally go by 3-week sprints, and they may be closer as we get closer towards the deployment. No SAMS credentials required. To enroll, send an email to the NHSN CDA mailbox, and we'll send you a enrollment form, and you'll complete and return to us. I'm hoping to have some of the CDAs ready to test by mid to late October. We'll send out an email regarding which CRs or CDA types are valid and ready to be tested. That information will also be on the important message screen that pops up when you first log in. Very important, the testing date for 2016, the mock date will be greater than or equal to July the 1st, 2015, will equal the 2016 rules. I think we did that the same way last year, so if you have any questions, just send us an email. There are still plans, and there's development right now, to move this pre-production site to a more stable and robust environment. I know sometimes it's gone down. Just send us an email if it does go down, and we'll get it back up as quickly as we can. Now I'll let Amy Webb next go. Let's go to the next slide.
Thanks, Mindy. This is just a quick reminder that we also wanted to share with you all. We've been getting some emails to the CDA help desk, and facilities are asking how they can upload CDA files for events that are not in plan, and the answer is they cannot do that. So only in-plan data can be uploaded via CDA. It's also important to note that data must be in plan in order for it to be shared with CMS. However, CMS only receives those data that are required by CMS. So for example, if a facility wanted to submit CDA data for HPRO and KPRO SSIs and procedures, those would need to be placed in plan. However, they would not be shared with CMS since there are no CMS requirements for those SSI types. So a lot of times folks don't want to include things in their plan because they think those data, all in-plan data, are sent to CMS, when in fact only CMS required data are shared with CMS. So we can move on now, and I'll turn it back over to Mindy.
So next we'll get into the Release 8.5 changes. So this is a high-level list of the items that are scheduled for the January 9th release for 2016. High-level list of changes includes following updates to the CDAs. It'll include Lab ID, SLIP, and the Dialysis Enumerator. We'll also discuss our transition to ICD-10 and CPT codes. We'll review additional AU drugs that will be required. New outpatient operating room location and changes to the ambulatory surgical care center location. And there'll be increased days present for AU and MDRO, and a few minor UTI and SSI corrections. And I'll turn it over to Amy.
So these next few slides just highlight a few of the upcoming changes to the AUR module. So this first CR, we've added these 7 new drugs already to NHSN, and these can be submitted in your CDAs. However, in 2016, with NHSN Release 8.5, these 7 new drugs will be required for successful upload of your CDA files, starting with January 2016 data. So you can see these listed on the slide here, and they are included in your IDM. This next CR, 1349, will increase the maximum value for AU days present in specific locations. Currently, the maximum days present is 10,000. However, we've heard from some facilities that their emergency departments specifically are going over 10,000 days present. So after 8.5, the maximum days present for any individual location will be bumped up to 50,000. So again, this will accommodate those large emergency departments. Next slide, please. And then this is more of an FYI, but in 8.5 we'll be updating the analysis feature of the AU option. We'll be adding the new standardized antimicrobial administration ratios, or SARs. These are very similar to the SIRs, the standardized infection ratios used with the other HAI events. It's an observed to an expected usage ratio. It's important to note that these will only be available for adult and pediatric medical, surgical, and medical surgical ward and ICU location types for those that are submitting AU data. So you'll only be able to get these comparisons if the facility is submitting AU data into NHSN. The SARs are going to be split up by select groupings of antimicrobials, and you can see the groupings here listed on the slide. On my next slide, this shows a sample screenshot of what it will look like in the application. The SARs will be available for data starting in January 2014 moving forward. And now I'll turn it over to Tammy.
Jamie. Okay, the next section I'm going to cover will be dialysis and patient safety changes in regards to the dialysis numerator and clips. Okay, in regards to the dialysis numerator, this pertains to the CR 1399-1192. The dialysis CDA will transition from R2D2 1.1 to version R2D2.1. We will send out an implementation guide to the dialysis CDA creation. The next pinpoint is required if positive blood culture equals yes, whereas positive blood culture is been collected. This will be on form 57502. So if the hospital facility answers the question on the form for the positive blood culture is yes, the other questions will then populate. Here, okay, next slide. Continuing on to the dialysis numerator. This is an FYI. The following fields will be optional and will be added to the interface, but they're not in the R2D2.1 CDA, and they'll be updated come 2017. You can see here the question to be added will be dialysis. The patient dialysis. I cannot pronounce that word. Is reused to be yes or no. Another question will be was the new outpatient start or the continuation of the inpatient course will be also added. For clips, these clip events will equal to 2016. Must be used the R2D2.1 version for the IG, for the central line insertion date. The clip CDA is valid for the dialysis and patient safety components. the additional conditionally required question, which is the CR 1130. I do apologize. This was the one if the user chooses yes, these questions will populate. That's a correction from the previous slide. Additional changes for the business rule, which will occur for version 8.5, is if a patient is less than 2 months of age or 60 days, chlorhexidine is to be used with caution in patients less than 2 months of age. If the patient is less than 60 days or 59 days or less, the required is to be yes, and if the patient is greater than or equal to 60 days, it's required to be no. And this is based on the date of birth and insertion date. Also, for the new outpatient or location changes, this will reflect all components, dialysis, patient safety, HPS, or and long-term care. These are the changes that will be taking place, as you can see on the Excel document here. And the location export tool, this will allow you to export your location mapping for each of the vendors, for the facilities to verify the mapping between the vendor application and the NHSN application for the CDA files. For the MDRO, the total encounters have been upgraded to 50,000. The total amount should be increased from 10,000 to 50,000. Very similar to the AU, as Amy described earlier. This will be updated in the IABM coming out, but we'll go ahead and send out to everybody here shortly. Okay, now I'll go ahead and turn it on to my coworker, Mindy.
Thanks, Tammy. So next we'll talk about the Lab ID changes that are coming. It's CR 1206 and 1211 when you're looking in the IDM. It's based on the R2D2.1 IG. This new Lab ID CDA version will be required for all equal to or greater than 2016 data, and of course that's based off the specimen collection date. The user interface will also be updated to match the CDA and for the January release. The CDA includes the NHS's significant pathogen, the Cree Enterobacter. I know it has existed in the user interface, which caused some confusion, but now it will actually be in your CDA, and you can import it. The CDA also includes additional questions. Last physical overnight location of patient immediately prior to arrival into facility. And also, has patient been discharged from your facility in the past 4 weeks? And has patient been discharged from another facility in the past 4 weeks? Removed from the CDA is, has the patient been discharged from your facility in the past 3 months? And you'll notice that basically they switched out the 4 weeks to from the 3 months. And also prior documentation of the patient being infected or colonized with the organism currently being reported. This will be validated in the NHSN application, and so this field will be auto-filled now. It will not need to be in the CDA anymore. This is a screen print of the part of the form. We call it the mocked-up forms. You should have received those for the Lab ID, CLIP, and Dialysis Enumerator. So make sure we have the codes in there. I'm not sure if it's helpful, but our development team does use it, and actually our QA team uses it as a reference. And then the example of the lower example, autofill for prior infection in the green. Also, the Lab ID is now had a chance to add the optional fields of race and ethnicity. And then, as you're probably already aware, a series of conditionally required questions for carbapenemase. This is all based on if the organism equals any of the Cre pleb, Cre enterobacter, or Cre E. coli. Was the bacterial isolate isolated for the carbapenemase? And if yes, which tests were done? And you can check all that apply, including unknowns. And did the isolate test positive for carbapenemase? If yes, please identify which carbapenemases were identified. And once again, you can check all that apply. I put this screenshot of the XML in here just to remind you. They're called commented up XMLs. I go through the XML form and try to comment where there are changes from the previous version, whatever it may be. Sorry about that. Let's see if we can go back up. And you can look for my initials, MD, if you want to do a find, and it should take you to all, I say all, most, if I captured them all, of the changes in the XML from the last version. And also as a reference, make sure you reference the IG, the samples, the mocked up forms, the IDM, and also don't forget about the protocol. And here's an example of the mocked up form. Anything in yellow is being added, which you'll see for this Lab ID, there's a lot of additions. So I know everybody's working on this now, the transition from ICD-9 to ICD-10 and CPT codes. We are working on it as hard as we can. Another group is actually doing all the work to load and find out which codes they want to use, and we're sort of the messengers for you. So if any changes, we will get them out as soon as we can to you. I know there's been a few versions of the IDM already sent out. It is CR 400, 1116, and 1045. We actually combined them all into one CR, so you may, when you look in the IDM, you'll look for primarily 400, and that should direct you to all the changes. For the application, it really will accept ICD-9 codes for less than or equal to 2015 data because the code for the release is not going until January. However, on your side, you should be collecting the data based on the ICD-10 or CPT codes. So for ICD-10 or CPT codes for 2016 are accepted for events and procedures. So for right now, or starting in October, when you have to switch, you will omit the ICD-9 and ICD-10 and CPT codes from the CDA. They will not be valid. There will be no validation, and actually it'll be looking for the ICD-9, so it will error on import. They'll remain, even next year in 2016, they will remain as optional fields, and there'll actually be a code validation occurring. In the actual XML, it will be the same translation tag that you've always used for the ICD-9 code. You will just switch the code and put in either the ICD-10 or CPT code. And as I said, there will be validation on our side. Only one code allowed for CDA, and no supplemental codes allowed in the CDA. Only ICD-10 or CPT. So these are more changes that were affected by the transition to ICD-10 and CPT. There's been some procedure form changes. So for HPRO and KPRO, some HPRO and KPRO types will not be used for 2016 data on the procedure form. you'll see which ones are scratched out, like partial revision for total. And then once they started thinking about it, it just really didn't make a lot of sense. So this will be beginning in 2016. For R-Fusion will no longer be reported for procedures and events greater than or equal to 2016. And actually, that should start on your side because you're going to be collecting the data from your system using the ICD-10 code. So it is only Fusion now that will be reported. There is a validation that will be occurring of ICD code and the scope field. So the rule is if the number 4 or 8 is in the 5th position of the ICD-10 code, then the field scope needs to be equal to yes. And in that example, you'll see that number 4 is highlighted in yellow. So it's in the 5th position. So we would expect that procedure to have scope field is equal to yes. So the HPRO and KPRO rules are now less restrictive. There is one primary list for HPRO and another for KPRO. You probably see this in the IDM better, but this is all your list of HPRO codes. The supplemental codes are included in the IDM for some of the types of HPRO and KPRO to assist you on your side with identification and be able to collect the data. Supplemental codes, once again, are not valid and should not be included in the CDA. However, they will be able to be captured in the user interface for manual entry. And they are optional also in CSV File. So this is some CSV File format. It may include the ICD-10 or supplemental ICD-10 and the CPT code. Use the CSV format with headers, and there's your header names, ICD-10 code, and the CPT code as shown on the slide. And then just an example of what the CSV file format file may look like. Just to give you an idea of what the user interface is going to look like, I actually sort of stole this from one of the requirements, and it's a little mocked up, but so you'll understand, or at least have an idea, if it's HPRO or KPRO, in this example, so they'll have an ICD-10 field and a CPT field. If they click on one of these radio buttons, they will be able to enter the code in the field. It will actually validate the code. So this is sort of a new method used as opposed to the old method, which gave a drop down and the user selected the code. Well, as you know, there's too many codes to have a drop down. So this method is being developed. If it is HPRO or KPRO, then one of these ICD-10 codes, and then they can put, a user manually can put in the supplemental code right here. And that's what the new user interface will look like, beginning after January 9th release. So we had a small update for UTI, the use of UTI catheter in place and forced duty. And the change was needed because if the catheter was removed on the date of event, it was still in place for some time, and therefore in place should be selected. I think the SNE's got a lot of questions on this, and so this has been updated. Frequency, urgency, and dysuria will have the option to be yes if the catheter had been removed before the symptom occurred. So that's a new business rule. And then CR 1419 is a SSI update. It was overlooked for CR 1119, which was huge for release 8 for the January 8.3 release. They decided imaging tests evidence is one of the ways a person can meet deep incisional primary or secondary. So they added the lab RAD to this to be able to meet it. I did also want to show in this slide, in the next slide, I was going to show you something, make sure everybody knew. So this is the IDM, and here's your pathway. This pathway, in this example, has A, B, or C. We have C example. These pathways should match the protocol. So let's go to the next slide. So here's a screen print of the protocol for this SSI update, and you'll notice right here it has C, and it had imaging tests. So that was missed. So when in doubt, always look, the IDM should match the protocol. And this is primarily for SSIs in which the pathways are used, and you can compare them. Also, another correction is number reference number 3619 on the Events tab. A rule was modified to, for the pathogen identified in secondary bloodstream infection. It corrected the rule that included lab other PODs, and actually I think the application was correct. Our IDM was incorrect. So make sure you note that change in your coding. This is just a brief review of the backward compatibility deadlines, showing all of the recent CDAs that are converting over. So this summer we released the summary reports, all moved to the R2D2.1, and right now they're all accepted for January 15, and the older version they're all accepted for 2015, the older version and the newer version. Come 2016, they'll all roll over, and only the newer versions will be accepted. And then for your Lab ID clip and dialysis, only the newer versions are going to be accepted beginning 2016. We'll talk about future CDAs. So just to keep you up to date, the AU and AR actually went to ballot through HL7 ballot as a R3 normative IG. We needed to have that published for Meaningful Use 3 that will include AU and AR reporting. We are going to grandfather in the older versions. The older versions of CDAs will be accepted, so you do not need to move to the new version for AU and AR. New CDA submitters will need to use the R3 norm IG. Deployment of this new version will be mid-2016 or 2017, January. Not sure about that schedule yet. The biovigilance denominator is turning into a CDA. The IG is presently going through the HL7 fall ballot. I think the HL7 meeting is the first week of October this year. Our target date for CDA import is January 2017. The dialysis enumerator and denominator will be updated in 2017. There are small changes, however, they will both move to a new IG version. No immediate plans for a VAE or outpatient procedure component. We're waiting on the protocol to stabilize. And this is, I know you've heard buzz about it, but NHSN will deploy one major release per year and a few minor releases each year. So that's, hopefully that'll be good for the vendor companies, making all the changes, good for us, so we'll see how all that goes. The NHSN biovigilance team is planning to attend the American Association of Blood Bank annual meeting. Its AABB meeting will be in October, the 24th through the 27th. It's at the Anaheim Convention Center in Anaheim, California. We plan to have a pre-conference meeting, similar to how we do at APEC. We'll give a presentation on the biovigilance and hemovigilance denominator before the meeting, Friday, October the 23rd from 9 to 11. We expect this to be a new group of vendors that primarily deal with blood bank, and it'll be at the Hilton Hotel next to the Anaheim Convention Center. During the conference, we'll offer one-on-one meetings Saturday or Sunday, so if you're interested, please RSVP to the email and just let her know if you'll be attending and when would you would like to meet and have a one-on-one. As usual, we'll distribute any IDMs if there's any updates. We always welcome feedback, ways to improve, things you need, let us know. And we do offer individual vendor webinars if there's anything specific that you need to understand better or want to discuss with us. Well, thank you for attending. This concludes our session, and we hope to see you at the AABB meeting. Thank you.